She saved 3 homeless kids. Decades later, they saved her from a life sentence. She didn't have much, but when 3 homeless kids knocked on her door, she gave them everything she could: food, shelter, love. For years, she was their only family. But life is cruel. Decades later, that same woman found herself on trial, facing a life sentence for a crime she swore she didn't commit. The world turned its back. Everyone walked away. Everyone, except 3 unexpected people who stepped into the courtroom and changed everything. Who were they? If this story is keeping you hooked, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more powerful stories like this. Jessica lived a simple life. She wasn't wealthy, she wasn't famous. She was just a woman trying to survive each day with quiet strength. Her small apartment barely fit the essentials, yet her heart was bigger than the walls that contained it. One cold night, as rain poured down the cracked sidewalks, she heard a faint knock at her door. Standing outside were 3 children, skinny, shivering, and with eyes that told a story of hunger and abandonment. Most people would have turned them away, but Jessica didn't hesitate. She pulled them inside, wrapped them in blankets, and shared what little food she had. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Jessica worked double shifts to keep the children fed, walked them to school every morning, and tucked them in at night with the kind of love they had never known. Though life was still hard, she believed she had found her purpose. Her world wasn't about her struggles anymore. It was about giving these children a chance at a better life. And in those quiet nights, when the laughter of 3 little voices filled her home, Jessica felt something she hadn't in years: hope. But what she didn't know was that her greatest act of kindness would one day return in ways she could never have imagined. Years passed, and the children grew under Jessica's care. They weren't hers by blood, but in every way that mattered, they were her family. Teachers noticed the change. Kids, once silent and withdrawn, now laughed, studied, and dreamed of futures they never thought possible. Jessica never asked for thanks. Their smiles were enough. But life has a way of testing even the strongest souls. One tragic evening, Jessica was in the wrong place at the wrong time. A violent confrontation broke out near a store she often visited, and before she could make sense of what had happened, she was accused of being involved. Police swarmed the scene, witnesses pointed fingers, and soon Jessica, a woman who had given everything to others, was facing charges for a crime she didn't commit. The headlines painted her as guilty before the trial even began. Neighbors whispered, friends she thought she had turned away. Sitting in a cold cell, Jessica replayed her life over and over. How could this be happening? How could kindness be repaid with such cruelty? Days bled into weeks, and the trial loomed closer. The prosecutors were relentless, painting her as someone capable of something unimaginable. Jessica felt small in that courtroom, surrounded by strangers who looked at her like she was already condemned. Her voice trembled when she spoke, but no one seemed to believe her. And then, in her darkest hour, something extraordinary happened. As the courtroom doors opened, 3 familiar faces walked in. Grown now, confident, dressed in the dignity of the lives Jessica had once saved, those children she had rescued decades ago. The jury glanced at them, puzzled. The judge raised his brow. Jessica's heart stopped. She hadn't seen them in years. And yet, here they were, walking forward with purpose, ready to speak the truth that could change everything. Would they be enough to save her? Or would the system crush even this act of loyalty? The courtroom went silent as the 3 stepped forward. The eldest, Marcus, stood tall, his voice steady but filled with emotion. Your Honor, this woman saved our lives. We were children, abandoned, hungry, lost. No one cared, except her. She gave us a home, food, and love. Without Jessica, we wouldn't be standing here today. The jurors leaned in, the prosecutor's sharp expression faltering. Then came Maya, her eyes glistening as she spoke. I was only 6 when she found me. I had nothing, not even shoes on my feet. Jessica taught me to read, made me believe I was worth something. She's the reason I became a teacher, so no child would feel invisible like I once did. The room shifted. People whispered. The judge tapped his gavel for silence. Finally, the youngest, David, took the stand. His words cut through the tension like a blade. You call her a criminal, but to us, she was hope. If you take her away now, you're not punishing a criminal. You're punishing the woman who gave 3 broken kids a chance to live. Jessica sat frozen, tears streaming down her face. For the first time since her arrest, she felt something stronger than fear. She felt seen. The prosecutor tried to recover, dismissing their testimony as irrelevant, but the damage was done. The jury wasn't just listening to evidence anymore, they were witnessing a truth that no headline could twist. The judge's eyes softened. The weight of years of injustice hung in the air. This was the turning point. Everything Jessica had given, every sacrifice, every sleepless night spent protecting children who weren't hers, came crashing back into this one moment. And now the question burned in everyone's mind. Would their voices be enough to shatter the chains of a life sentence? The courtroom waited in silence as the judge leaned forward, his voice low but firm. This case is not about paperwork or procedure. It's about humanity. He looked at Jessica, then at the 3 grown children, standing proudly by her side. You gave them life when no one else would. And today, they've given you yours back. The gavel struck. The words echoed. Case dismissed. Jessica gasped, her hands trembling as tears poured down her cheeks. The children she once carried through hunger, sickness, and fear now carried her out of the courtroom, not as a prisoner, but as the woman who had shaped their lives. The crowd erupted in applause. Strangers wept. Even a few jurors wiped their eyes. That night, Jessica sat surrounded by the 3 adults who had once been lost children. They ate dinner together, just like they had years ago at her tiny kitchen table. Only this time, they weren't fighting to survive. They were celebrating freedom, but the story didn't end there. Jessica's case went viral, sparking national conversations about unfair sentencing, forgotten heroes, and the hidden sacrifices of women like her. She became a symbol, not of crime, but of resilience, love, and the power of second chances. Still, Jessica carried the scars. Prison walls had stolen years she could never get back. Yet she looked at Marcus, Maya, and David, and knew one thing. None of it was in vain. Her story wasn't just hers anymore. It belonged to everyone who had ever been overlooked, punished, or forgotten despite the good they had done. And as the cameras rolled outside the courthouse, a reporter asked her what she wanted to say to the world. Jessica's voice cracked, but her words were steady. Don't let the world decide who deserves saving. Sometimes the ones you save will be the ones who save you.